Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Yo on the Go Leadership Moments, where we upgrade all the vehicles in life. Today's special guest is Kevin Noertker. Kevin is a CEO of Amp Air, the ultimate upgrade, really electrifying flight. And I'm super excited to have you on here because you have this mission. You're also an entrepreneur, a leader who thrives in high pressure environments, and also is a featured speaker at the IEEE Rising Stars Conference. Kevin, it's really great to have you on the program. I'm really excited to hear you know, we've heard a lot of electrification recently, right? Especially with vehicles, automotive vehicles, and this is really that next step, going to flight, where it's mostly gas powered, if not all, except for drones. And what does it take as a leader to be able to push into this new and exciting field?
Now, well, Terrence, thanks for having me here. This is an absolute pleasure. Great to be chatting with you. And you're absolutely right. This is the final frontier of sustainable transportation. You see sustainable electrified vehicles on the ground pretty frequently now. You probably couldn't drive on the highway here in Southern California without seeing an electric or hybrid electric vehicle. But if you look up to the skies, you just don't see them yet. Now, why don't you see them? Well, it's a very challenging problem. And when building a company like Ampere in this space, it's a challenging leadership opportunity as well. And so when you think about core leadership requirements, right? You need to have resiliency because there's always going to be a challenge around the bend. You need to have a bit of humility. We're working in areas that no one's ever achieved the things that we're achieving. When you're truly at the leading edge of an industry, you need to be able to handle ambiguity, handle all that uncertainty, and ultimately to be a leader in the space, you need to be able to build a great team and motivate that team along the way.
Well, that sounds really, really great to be able to have that resilience and also to build that team and also to be able to look and have that far-reaching vision. So really excited to hear that. I'd like to pull that thread in terms of resilience. You know, I just remember going to the CES conference, I want to say about 3 years ago. And the first thing I saw at CES was this, what looked like a drone, right, vehicle with a single person seat in there. And when I looked at it, I kind of chuckled a little bit because I was saying, the weight to power ratio for these lithium ion batteries, probably not going to make that happen, and so you're going to see some criticism, right, going. So what does that look like in terms of a leader who sees the future and has to bring along everyone else, even though they're still living in the past? Wow. How do you do that from a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, if you're doing entrepreneurship right, if you're truly working on something that's revolutionary, that's differentiated and unique in the world, then you're probably going to be way out front of where most people's perceptions are. And so back when we founded our company in early 2016, electrified aviation was completely crazy. I mean, almost nobody had even heard about it. It was even before a lot of these kind of the flying car or eVTOL concepts were out there as well. So over the last 4.5 years, we've absolutely we've had to interact with people who were awestruck and skeptical of the future. What I find is that the most compelling way to change people's minds is to show them, not just tell them what the future is, but to actually have meaningful demonstrated success in the area. So for our focus, rather than just working on future concepts and talking about an eventual future product that we're building, we're actually doing very meaningful things today, upgrading existing planes and flying them. Because when you show air-to-air footage, or even better yet, when people can go see the plane themselves or even fly in the plane, they'll believe it's real. And we think that that's the best way to change people's minds in this type of an area.
So really seeing is believing. It's not about
Oh,
showing
absolutely.
a vaporware product or showing a simulation of it. It's actually putting them in the vehicle, taking them for a flight, and getting them excited about that. Wow. So
Absolutely.
what's one of those like highlight moments you've had in the last 4 years where you've really got that aha moment from all, the investors and all the other people who are looking at your company? Can you share one of those experiences with me?
Well, I'll say like the biggest recent aha moment for me was I was actually up in our plane about a month ago, and I was flying with our test pilot, and and then we look over at the pilot and we shut off the engine, the combustion engine in our hybrid electric plane. And you know, the idea of like, okay, you've got this engine going in the background, you shut it off, the plane goes quiet, and you'd think you'd fall out of the sky, right? But it was when he then had me throttle up the electric system, the electric vehicle system, and we take off, climb, and cruise around the California coastline, fully electric at that moment. I mean, that was the first time I'd ever flown in one of our planes, the first time I had personally ever flown the plane myself. And there are things that you study, things that you understand in theory or based on all the analysis, but the moment that you experience it firsthand, when you
Mm.
experience the power of an electric vehicle system, the acceleration, much like you'd see on the ground, the torque that you can get,
Mhm.
um, it just at a moment's notice. And when you experience that in flight, it is truly something unique. And
Wow.
I think that for me was the biggest moment recently, and certainly helps me understand and kind of reinvigorates that understanding of the uniqueness of this, and as well as the power behind it.
Wow, I can really hear that excitement in your voice and just imagining that moment with in free flight with a fully electric power. That's really amazing. That's a really awesome experience. Can you share with me your vision about what that would look like in terms of changing the way aviation, maybe even things like stunt planes and other things like that? What can electric do that the typical combustion or jet engine are unable to provide or deliver?
Well, there are actually quite a few areas that we're going to see this come into market. So I'll start with where we're focused at Ampere. This is commercial aviation. So imagine you go to Hawaii and you want to hop around the islands. How do you do that? Well, you usually would do that in a 9-passenger plane, island hopping there, or elsewhere in the country and around the world. These regional flights are generally flown with smaller planes, but the challenge is an economic challenge where airlines struggle to be profitable. By switching over to hybrid electric and eventually fully electric, they decrease the operating costs, they drop ticket prices, they increase the flexibility and availability of those flights. In the new destinations, we're going to see a massive unlock in the markets available, even with some air travel competing with road travel. I mean, if you think about going to San Diego from Los Angeles, you very well might choose to drive rather than fly. Why would you fly LAX to San Diego? I mean, that's just too short.
Hmm.
But it's a great example of where we're going to see flight routes opening up with hybrid electric. You're also going to see people learning how to fly, learning how to be pilots in electric planes because the operating cost is so low. You can go up in a two-seater
Hmm.
for cents on the dollar compared to what it would cost to learn in a combustion plane. Now, you're going to
Hmm.
be able to get some really amazing performance out of these planes. First and foremost, you can distribute the propulsion into a lot of different areas on the plane, where a
Hmm.
combustion engine becomes very inefficient when it gets small. So you couldn't take a big engine and cut it into 4 smaller engines and still expect to have any good performance. You can do that with an electric motor. You can make small electric motors that still maintain very good efficiency as they get distributed. That means that you can have new aircraft architectures that you could never have imagined before. Some of those look
Hmm.
like the vertical takeoff and landing ones, but even in conventional type planes, you have new ways to distribute, whether that's airflow along the wing or just more propulsive systems that interact with the aerodynamics of the plane. So great performance there. That could help you do ultra short takeoff and landings, as well as you mentioned, some pretty cool aerobatics type stuff.
Wow. So we're really looking at the cusp of a complete explosion in the plethora and diversity of flight is what you're really sharing in this. And that's super exciting. I mean, it's really
Absolutely.
great to see that. I can see that just by your sharing about that. And in those years, in these past 4 years that you've been working and explaining and sharing this vision, I'd like to hear what's the most difficult thing that you've had to do in terms of a decision for the company, and how have you been able to push through that as a leader?
Yeah, I think the one of the most challenging decisions we had to make was where we were going to focus our development efforts as far as which products to go after. There are so
Mm.
many exciting opportunities. We founded the company on the idea of vertical takeoff and landing, supersonic, fully electric jets. I mean, just imagine having that as your North Star and then saying, well,
Mm.
what's sooner than that that we could turn into a product? Well, I
Mm.
mean, obviously, we looked at vertical takeoff and landing. We also looked at business jets. We looked at drones. We looked at agriculture. We looked at brand new designed planes. And the decision ultimately to start with upgrades of existing planes, conversions, that it took a lot of
Mm.
thought. It took a lot of conversations with our customers. It was not an easy decision to come by, but we absolutely believe it's been the right one for our company, and ultimately will be the right one for the industry's starting point. Um, but those kind of decisions define not just the near term, but also a very long period of the company's roadmap. And so that's certainly been one of the biggest decision points for us.
Wow, I think that's a key mark of leadership, right? To be able to see, because you have such a great vision of the future, to be able to then pick that path to get there and not knowing what the next steps would be. How do you pick those paths? Like, how did you decide to go with a hybrid electric conversion versus that vertical takeoff drones? I mean, yes, you talk with your customers, but can you give me a little bit more detail about that?
Yeah, so I'm going to say it starts with a lot of soul searching. And it's not soul searching in a very general way. It's a soul searching and saying, why are we here? Like, what are we setting out to achieve? It is about establishing the mission of the company. The mission statement is really where a lot of these decisions have originated.
Hmm.
So our mission at Ampere is to be the world's most trusted developer of practical, compelling electric airplanes, from short-haul cargo to supersonic passenger transport. So three keywords:
Hmm.
trusted, practical, and compelling,
Hmm.
at the core of every decision we make, from the most humble beginnings of a commercial aviation industry like short haul cargo to, of course, that North Star supersonic. And when
Hmm.
you think about it, and by setting that mission and by having clarity on why we're here to do what we're doing, it means that we are able to focus in on those decision points. And trusted, practical, compelling. Is supersonic practical from a first product? Not particularly. Is vertical takeoff and landing practical? Also not as a first product. Is it compelling? Well, it's going to take it doesn't really hit the price point that you need. And so when you look at what can people trust, existing airframes, what is
Hmm.
going to be practical using technology that's right around the corner or already exists today, what's going to be compelling, hybrid electric gets you a lot farther than fully electric right now in aviation. And so
Hmm.
it's kind of by keying into these parts of the mission, which started with that soul searching, we then have a framework for making hard decisions, but being very confident that we're making them in the right direction. And I think that that's really important, just to always have in your core knowing why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, that's amazing to see that you have your grand vision with the North Star, then you've created the mission underneath with three key points, then that really guides you to that path and those ladders to do that incremental progression of that. Wow, what a great setup! What a great framework to launch and to have this company in fruition. Thank you so much, Kevin, for the time that we've had together. I very much appreciate that. As you can see, Kevin has an awesome vision, and he and the other Rising Stars featured speakers are willing and wanting to be able to share those visions and ideas with you, the audience. Please do go to the links below in the description and register for this conference. Kevin and the other amazing people are there and are looking to interact with all of you. Kevin, this was an amazing time together. I very much appreciated it. And thanks so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So until next time, bye.